Hello and welcome to our third video here. Moving right along, we're going to go right into number 18 with mean, median, standard deviation for the CD4 cell count. So with standard deviation, of course, I highly recommend learning how to use the calculator. All calculators can do standard deviation, and I have plenty of calculators for you guys to borrow. I'll go over these a little bit by hand here, but I really want to emphasize using the calculator as a means to definitely double check your work, and I will give you the values at certain points in time that you should be at for finding standard deviation, mean, and median. So of course, anytime you see median, you need to put the data set in order. So we're going to do that real quick. So this would be 398, 409, 411, 418, 419, 421, and 438. So our median value is going to be 418. We can write that as 418 right there. If we wanted to do a 5-point summary, we easily can do it since the values are in order here. Oh, one thing we always want to do, once again, is know how many data points we have in a set. So in this set here, we have n equals 7. Put that on the side. So in order to do standard deviation, we have to calculate our mean. Remember, the mean is adding up all the values divided by the total number. If we add up all the total values here, we'll get a sum of 2,914 divided by 7, and you will get a mean value of 416.285. Since these are all whole numbers, we want to report at least one decimal out, with the exception here. We don't want to round, because if we round, we're going to get completely different values. So remember, mean isn't kind of our final answer because we're going to be using standard deviation, so you don't want to round. So always when in doubt, just don't round. And if you rounded this up to 14.3, your values are going to be slightly different than when you put in the calculator. So just keep that in mind. But if you wanted to, you can just use 416.2 when we're doing our standard deviation. Now, I'm going to write on the side here our formula for standard deviation. So standard deviation is equal to the square root of the sum of x sub I, so the data point that we're looking at, minus your x bar of that data set squared, divided by n minus 1. So these are the steps you want to do. Remember, follow your orders of operation. So first thing you do is parentheses. So x of I minus x bar. So you take all these data points. So I normally rewrite them all off onto the side here. And everyone's going to have their own little way of doing it. This is just my way. It doesn't mean everyone has to follow it. And then I subtract it from the mean for 16.2. Now, in your calculators, most calculators, you're going to have a memory function. You can always store a memory as a value of x. So you can always just put a memory value of 416.2 as x, and then in your calculator, what you could do is you could just type in like 438 minus x, and if x is stored as 416.2, then you don't have to keep always typing that in your calculator to keep going, and then you can find that value. And then once you find the deviation, so for this one, if you did it in the calculator, you get 21.8. Well, if you already know you're going to square it, just square that answer right away. And when you do that, it just saves time from putting it back in, especially if you get a negative value, because if you put a negative value in and then try to re-put it in, if you don't put in parentheses, you're going to get a negative value. And remember, anytime you square a negative value, you're going to get a positive one. So I'm going to do a couple here so you can see it, but I'm not going to write all of them out. For, YouTube only lets me have 15-minute videos, and we're already on video 3 here. So I'm just going to write these out and then let you see what the total sum is going to be. And this is 7.84, 0.24, 27.04. And then if you were to keep going down and add all these up, you should get your sum of squares. So remember, you just square these values here. And then when you square them and you sum them, sigma, you sum them, so that's the sum of squares. So your sum of squares value should be somewhere around 919.48. We have 914.8. We're going to now divide by n minus 1. N is 7. N minus 1 is going to be 6. So it's going to equal 153.24. Now, this is your variance. This is s squared. This is your variance here. So remember, if we want to go from variance of s squared to equal s, we just take the square root. And this is why we take the square root of our values to get back to our original units. So that's our variance. Our standard deviation here is going to be 12.374, or you can say 12.4. That is fine as well. Moving right along into number 19 here. And remember, this is a great way that you could do it by hand, and then when you use your calculator, you should be able to double check your answers. And if you're in the same ballpark, you're doing great. If you're not in the same ballpark, use your calculator to help you figure out where you may have messed up. Remember, if you have your calculator and you know you did everything to calculate right, do it again in the calculator. It takes only like 30 seconds to do it in the calculator. If you get the same answer twice and you know you double checked and all your values are in there correctly, work backwards. If you have a standard deviation, square it to get your variance. Is your variance off, or is your standard deviation off? How far is it off? And then just keep working backwards. If you take the standard deviation, square, then you can multiply it by 6, and then you can get your sum of squares. And if your sum of squares is off, then you can start looking and seeing where your deviations and your squaring is off, and you kind of work a problem backwards to determine where you may have made a mistake. All right, so moving on to number 19 here. I'm going to move this quickly so that way I can finish the next problem also in this video. So once again, we're doing the same things we've been doing. So one thing we want to do is put this in order, because we're going to be finding our 5-number summary. When you add up all the values, divide by a total number. Remember here, we want to put what our n equals. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. N equals 7. X bar, 19.5. I should put it down here. X bar equals 19.5. We want to find out our IQR and 5-number summary. So our minimum value here is going to be 17. Q1, 18. Q2, 19. Q3, 22. And then our max value here, 22. IQR is going to equal, remember, your Q3 minus Q1, and that's going to equal 22 minus 18. Equal 4. Remember, everything builds on top of each other. If you get a wrong 5-point summary, you're going to get a wrong IQR, which then could lead to wrong finding outliers. So when we're calculating your variance and standard deviation, your sum of squares should equal 25.75. Your variance, s squared, your variance should be 4.29, and your standard deviation should be 2.07, or you can report it as 2.1, as it is our final answer. Remember, work backwards. If you're not getting it, go from s to s squared. You just square the value. And when you're going from your variance and you want to get your sum of squares, you're going to multiply it by your n minus 1. So in this case, it would be 6, and you should be able to get your sum of squares. You can kind of work backwards and see where mistakes may have been made. So here we have number 20. Same thing, going to go through this a little quickly, because we're doing the same things we've been doing. N equals 7 here. That kind of jumped on me. We're going to say our, well, let me put these in order for you real quick. So 3.6575. Another thing to do while you're also putting values, this is a 4, 3.87. While you're putting these in order, it's always a great idea that as you're doing it, if you want to make sure you're doing it, once you put them on a line, cross them off so you can see that you make sure you get them all. Make sure to also count them, right? And make sure all your data points there. If this number doesn't equal what your end value is, something's off. Just, double check, because if they're off any little bit, it's going to change everything around. So we're going to erase that real quick. So your median value here is equal to 3.84. Your x bar is equal to 3.825. Now be careful here because we're going 2 decimals out, so we're going to want to at least go 3 decimals out because we're going to be porting 3 decimals out. And our standard deviation should equal 0.115. Variance, though you don't have to report that as an answer, just to help everybody out in case you're doing it and you're not finding the correct answer here. Remember, you can take your standard deviation and square it, and you should be able to get your variance. That's 0.01322. Somewhere around there is where your variance should be. All right, so that's your mean, median, standard deviation for these grade point averages done. And then number 20 here is just more calculations for conversions. They kind of slow down after this point, but we still want to practice. I'm just going to fill them in. And these are just good practice for you for when you're getting ready to take your calculation test. The more practice you have on conversions, the more comfortable you will get, the easier hopefully it becomes, and you don't have to stress out too much. If you get different values and you want to know where a problem is, just let me know. If not, I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.